Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on high-performance computing. Today, my guest is Douglas Eadline. He's one of the founders of the Beowulf Bash. This is an annual party. It's the party to attend at the supercomputing conferences. Doug, welcome to the show today.
Thanks. Thanks for having us on.
You bet. Doug, I thought we could talk about this year's party, of course, but I'm really curious to learn about the origins of this. It's been around for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and it has it has an interesting history that I think a lot of people don't know about.
So, let's go back to Beowulf, I guess. When did Beowulf clusters first become a phenomenon?
Well, it started, actually, the experimentation started back in the early 90s, and it wasn't until the later 90s where at supercomputing you started to see a few, and I mean a very few, companies offering turnkey clusters, and a lot of the government labs had some clusters, and it was still kind of, back then, still kind of considered like a hobbyist kind of approach to supercomputing.
Sure. So they were cobbling together computing nodes and trying to get them to work together and writing their own scripts. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, essentially. And so one of the focal points of the entire community was the Beowulf mailing list. And I also invited here Jeff Layton, who has been a longtime member of the list. And also to come in a little later, Lara from Xand Marketing is going to talk about the later evolution of the Beowulf Bash. But the early Bash was really intended for one reason, to get all the people, or most of the people, on the mailing list to meet each other face to face. That was the simple idea. We spent all year talking about best ways, best practices, ideas on how to build clusters. And I thought, well, we're all at supercomputing. Why don't we all get together? So the plan was myself and Don Becker, who was there when his company Skilled was just starting. We thought, well, why don't we see if we can collect some money here and there from our respective companies, and money. I'm talking about maybe, I forget, it was maybe $100 or $200 per company. And we'll get some beer and rent, a small meeting room in a hotel and invite everybody over, and some pretzels, and I think we maybe had some wine or something. I don't know. So we managed to talk Etnis, a company that made a Total View debugger, and SCA, who made the Lambda parallel programming language, into also kicking in some money. So we had in our eyes, we had a fairly large budget. And then, lo and behold, Todd Needham from Microsoft Research came up to us when we were kind of planning this on the trade show floor and said, well, he wanted Microsoft to be part of this, and he personally threw in some money. I forget what it was, but our consensus was that, well, look, we can buy more beer, so we don't care who the money's from. So essentially that's how it got started, and it was actually a very big success. Throughout the night we had over 100 people come in and meet each other and say hi, and it basically was a very good event. A lot of people told me later they liked it. They liked the atmosphere and the talking. So with that, we decided we'd try and keep doing it, and one of the ideas was it would be a community event. And the idea would be that we'd ask a lot of different vendors to contribute a little bit, just like you do with open source software, give a little, get a lot, and then we'd bring everybody in and meet and have a good time and celebrate the community and talk. So that's essentially how it got started.
So that was back at SC99. I guess that was in Portland. Remember correctly?
Yeah, I think it was. And,
yeah.
And on the slides we have, there's pictures down there of some young people, and the original representatives of the companies that started it, and then you can see the room full of people there. So it it grew from there.
So when you got, a growth like that, Doug, big party, lots of people show up, catering, did things just get out of hand, and how did you handle that?
Well, a little sidebar here. So at the same time, there was this event being put together, and it started to grow bigger and bigger each year. Still very informal. I mean, I would have people email me, "Hey, are you having that get together again?" And some at one point, Penguin Computing took over organizing it, and I would attend, but I didn't have a whole lot to do with it because they were pretty much shelling out a lot of money. So during those years, it was growing on its own a little bit. And then at the same time, there was this other thing, what we called the Lexabig. And that's where Walt Ligon and I, years and years before, I'd say 97 or so, we were at a supercomputing event, and we found we both liked to smoke cigars. So we decided every time we'd get together at a meeting or something, we'd take a moment and hang out and smoke a cigar. And this, again, turned into more of a social event than anything. And this was also grew as an event at supercomputing, which was, people would say, well, "Hey, where are you or Walt meeting for your cigars?" So we kind of jokingly came up with this cigar and cognac invitational Beowulf gathering thing. So I would have to put that together, and I did such a horrible job. I mean, so the one year when SC was in Tampa, right, cigar capital of the U.S., all right, so I made the arrangements to meet at this cigar restaurant on Monday night after, as it usually is after the gala. Well, guess what? It was closed. The entire cigar district was closed Monday night.
Oh, no.
So that's when I decided to turn it over to Lara and have somebody that knew what they were doing. So that event, there was actually a fairly big following that we decided, look, let's just roll it all into the Beowulf Bash, and that's when Beowulf Bash 2.0 got going, and that's slide 4, and that started in 2008, where it got very professional, very well organized, and everything kind of melded together into a real event, and it was really quite good. It was at this piano bar, and you can see on some of the pictures, that's Lara and I, and there's Don Becker sitting on a piano singing or doing something. I'm not sure what happened there. So Jeff and Lara, I'm sure you have some comments about this period of history.
Well, that particular Beowulf Bash is the one where I lost my voice for about 2.5 days, which during supercomputing, which is my primary business development show for the year, was a really terrible thing. But we'd expected maybe 250, 300 people based on what Penguin had been able to pull, and we ended up with 500. And Penguin really helped out when we had such an overflow of people. Their CEO came right up to bat and said, absolutely more drink tickets for everyone. So they really kept the party going. But it was so loud in there that my job as hostess and greeter, I basically had to shout into everyone's ear who walked in the door, here's your drink ticket, here's your raffle ticket, put your card in the bowl, take a goodie bag. And by the time I'd done that 500 times, my voice was completely shot. But we were bowled over by the fact that we had almost doubled the anticipated attendance. And we said, oh my gosh, this is going to be pretty huge, and we have to think bigger for next year. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see we just kept getting bigger. We went from 500 to 750. We rented a steamboat, paddle boat for the New Orleans Beowulf Bash because it was themed, paddle boat steamer, and we ended up with more people than the boat could carry. We had the poor boat staff running and pulling food from other parties that were scheduled for the next day or two because we ran out of food. it was pretty intense. And that particular party, a bunch of sponsors came up and helped because we ended up going over budget because we didn't anticipate 750 people. So eventually, when we go to, I guess last year we ended up with almost 1,000, and this year we're definitely going to break 1,000.
So Lara, I mean, putting on something of that scale, that takes a lot of sponsors. Is that a particular challenge for you, or do you get help with that, wrangling that?
Well, I've been working on trying to make the Beowulf Bash the event of supercomputing. And obviously there's a show party that the exhibitors know about that always happens on Sunday night. And then everybody who is exhibiting makes their party on Tuesday or Wednesday because there's so many companies and so many parties. But Monday was the black hole. We have the gala from 7 to 9, but my thinking was, all right, after 9, people want somewhere to do and something they need to blow off the steam, especially the exhibitors who've been running around for 48 hours, pulling their hair out and getting everything ready just before people walk in the door. And then also the attendees who are just at the very beginning. They serve drinks on the show floor. People need something to do after 9. And so it was our idea to try to own that slot. And to date, that's what we've done. We don't compete with any other parties that night. And it's become something that so many sponsors are interested in participating in that I get contacted every year. I get contacted starting in the middle of summer. Hey, what's going on with the Bash this year? Hey, don't forget I want to sponsor. So I do go out and push, and I do recruit, and every year I do get new sponsors, and that makes me really happy because I always think of this as the party by the community for the community. And so the more the merrier, and I love getting new sponsors to the table. And I do go out and recruit, but it's not as hard as you think because a lot of people are really interested in participating. It's a kick-ass party. They love it each year. They want to be associated with it, and they want to give back to the community. And that's really at the core of it why the party exists in the first place.
Sure. So what about this year? I mean, we're going to be in Salt Lake, not really known as a party town, Lara.
No, that was a bit challenging, but Adaptive Computing stepped up. That's their hometown. So they are one of the key sponsors this year, along with Intersect 360 Research. And my good friend Jill over at Adaptive used to do event planning in Salt Lake City. So it wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it might be at the outset. And so we thought, okay, Salt Lake City. We had a whole bunch of sponsors last year going when we found out it was going to be in Salt Lake, thinking, all right, this is going to be like the last Beowulf Bash ever because it's right before December 21st, 2012, so maybe that's the theme. Or, okay, Mormonism or, the anti-party city. But, Doug, you'll have to explain why you came up with this year's theme.
First, before I do that, I'd like to just, if it's not too much of a pain, to go back to the second slide and point something out that a lot of people may not know. So on the right-hand picture, where it looks like Don Becker's holding up 2 television sets. So that's Don, and I don't know why he was up on the bar, but we'll leave that be. On the lower left picture is Tom Sterling, and next to him in the white shirt is Jim Fisher. And one of the aspects of the Beowulf Bash is a lot of times people who used to work together and don't anymore stop in to see each other, and it's kind of like become a bit of a reunion. So a lot of the movers and shakers are there. Now, Jim Fisher is the guy who took $50,000 of his budget and gave it to Tom and Don to build the first Beowulf computer. So if you talk to particularly Tom Sterling, will say, well, here's the guy who started Beowulf, because without him, they never would have had the money. So that's just a little trivia point I wanted to bring out. So now, back to why this is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Beowulf Bash. Well, so we're giving away, let me put it this way. As part of our campaign this year, we decided to keep the location a little bit secret and have a little fun with it. Lara said to me at one point, we're going to hold it in the planetarium, the Clark Planetarium 2 blocks from the convention center. Well, before she even stopped saying, I said, well, we've got to do a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy theme with this year's idea. I mean, last year it was in the aquarium, and so we had the Beowulf Bash and Cephalopod Festival in a nutshell party. So this year's event is Don't Panic, the Beowulf Bash, and we put together a whole bunch of editorial, nonsense editorial actually, that describes some silly things, and we have a separate actually a wiki that's like a Beowulf guide to the Beowulf Bash, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Beowulf Bash, with lots of information on it, all the vendors, and you can click and see what the vendors have to say. Some of them actually are quite funny, and they have a very good sense of humor, and we've sprinkled in the location of the bash as well. Not to be outdone, we also have enlisted a supercomputer of our own called Shallow Thought, a play off Deep Thought from Hitchhiker's Guide, that is a chatbot that if you ask where the party is, might tell you. And just don't say anything about its mother. That's all I can tell you. I also, Jeff, I know you've been quiet. I wanted to get some of your input as you've transitioned from basically an end user to a vendor in a sense, of what's your impression of the bash has been in the party itself.
I was hoping I'd get a chance to share my wisdom and experience, but the first one I got to say is, Rich, if you go back to slide 4, and I hate to keep going back, if you look at that lower left-hand picture, that's Lara and Doug, and no, Lara is not standing on a box, nor is Doug standing in a hole. Yes, Lara is actually that tall, very easy to find at the Beowulf Bash, so she's a perfect host. But then, in addition, she's very noticeable, so you can grab her at any time you need her. But I got to admit, the 2008 Beowulf Bash went on without me, thank goodness. I was actually in the hospital with 2 kidney stones during the Beowulf Bash. But I survived, and I came back another day. But yeah, I love the Beowulf Bash for everything that Doug and Lara have said. I mean, it's the community. It's lots of fun where people come up to you and go, hey, you're so-and-so, we've been communicating on the list, and we've sent some emails, how you doing? And we all sit down and start talking. And the one, I think, there's 2 turning points for me that, real quick. The one in New Orleans in 2010 on the paddle boat, that was amazing. And it was unbelievably huge and unbelievably fun. But for another reason, it was kind of a seminal event for me because I realized I was like twice as old as everybody else on the boat. It was all these young people, and I thought that was just great. Absolutely loved every second of it. All these young guys were running around, students having fun, learning, talking. I just thought that was amazing. I really, really enjoyed that. I thought that was so cool. And last year's in Seattle in the aquarium was amazing. I can't believe Lara organized that and got it working because there were so many people. But it's great. And Doug's right. It's you get to see people that you've worked with and customers and everything over the years. So it's just a lot of fun. You're away from the stress of the show and the conference, and you can sit down and talk. And it's just great. I love it over the years, and I look forward to it every single time. This year is going to be, not to reveal my age, but let's say I have something coming up soon where the doctors are going to get up close and personal with me, so you can tell my age really quickly. So I'm really excited to see, what the turnout will be this year. I really want to see all the young people out there.
Well, terrific. Well, Lara, I guess I got to press you for details here. When does this thing start on the Monday night next week?
Starts at 9 immediately after the gala ends and goes till midnight.
Okay, and live music, food. What can we look forward to besides Hitchhiker's Guide messaging there?
Well, we have this year, in addition to our regular band, we have a warm-up band by Adaptive, which is really great. I don't know if any of you remember the Got Beer Beowulf Bash, which was a great invitation. And by the way, I have to make a shout out here to my partner Doug, who comes up with the clever copy. Xand does the graphics, but together we've put together some really unusual and ingenious invitations. The Got Beer one was a GPL about beer, and that was because one of our vendors, one of our sponsors, was providing the beer, so it actually was free as in beer.
The important thing about the free beer was it was from a company that wasn't allowed, from a compiler company that wasn't allowed to say they donated the beer. So that way they were anonymous.
Okay, I remembered. Thank you for covering, Doug. That was the year that Walt Lagan opened for the band. And we thought it was really fun and really great because here's somebody who's really a key member of the Beowulf community, and they opened for the band. So this year, again, we have the Adaptive Computing Ace Band opening, and the main band is called the Dance Doctors. They're going to be a lot of fun. They've been recommended very highly. And, of course, we have eats and drinks and a lot of fun little things that I'm not going to reveal now. But if you show up, you'll leave with mementos, we'll put it that way.
Well, cool, Lara. I guess, well, I should mention, I saw the Adaptive Band last year at their user group. It's a great little blues ensemble of Adaptive employees, so I'm looking forward to see that. So what do people need to bring? Do they have to have a badge? Do they got to buy an invitation? Well, what's the story?
They have to bring their badge. Price of admission is a badge scan, and that's something we do have to do to keep all the sponsors happy. But I think it's a fair trade-off for 3 hours of food and drink and music and friends and goodie bag and some really interesting moments that we'll always share, as we always do.
And don't forget to practice your Gangnam style. That's important.
That sounds good, Doug. Well, hey, I want to thank you guys for joining us on the show today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having us.
I look forward to seeing you all next week at the Bash. I mean, that's when I get to see a lot of people.
Yeah.
The restaurant at the end of the universe will be serving refreshments and pan-galactic gargle blasters, so come thirsty.
Terrific. Okay, well, thanks again, guys. Okay, folks, that's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on high-performance computing.